Hey Slackers, this is Mr. Dunn. I'm sure you heard, but I'm going to be at home until probably Wednesday because I have tested positive for COVID 19. And knock on wood, I am completely asymptomatic, but just taking the necessary precautions. Um, I wanted to try to give you guys a little something to work with. Um, Seventh graders, quite frankly, what would I want to do if I was in seventh grade engineering and I had a substitute? I'd still want to cut. So I want to try the best that I can to remotely set you guys up for success and actually have you guys cutting with hand saws today. I asked Mr. Kaplan to put them out for you, and here's basically your block. So you can imagine you cut out your template, you put the actual CO2 car on it, trace the CO2 car, and then after that, I want you to draw a cutting line, which as you can see, I just drew here in red. A cutting line is the exact same thing as your actual drawing with about an eighth of an inch offset or slightly larger. The theory behind this red line here is that you're never going to have a perfect cut when you're using the saw. So you need some slop or a margin of error. So you can have a crooked cut on this red line, and later we will file, rasp, and sand down to this gray line. One final thing, the coping saws cannot cut well around curves. So we need to, in blue here, we need to add something called relief lines, which are going to be these straight pre-cuts that I want you to make on your block. So to prep your block, you put the template on, make sure the CO2 hole is accounted for, make sure you don't cut into the CO2 hole, make sure you don't have the template on backwards, trace it, that's the gray line. Draw it again, slightly offset, that's the red line. Then draw your straight lines to cut. If you have a small radius, I recommend you space your relief lines 1 finger apart. And if it's like a gradual kind of straight line, you can space them apart 2 fingers, possibly even skip the relief lines if you're making just straight cuts. Eventually, you'll use a saw kind of like this. This is actually a hacksaw for cutting metal, but it's the same concept though. You'll head out to the lab, you'll put your project into the vise, and you'll use the saw going back and forth to cut out the relief lines. All the lines you see there in blue. You cut all those out first, and after you finish all those blues, then you can go back to the red line. And as you're cutting on the red line, all of your relief lines should pop off little blocks. Finally, you're not into that at this point. You want to wait for the teacher. No problem. You can get ahead on your Schoology assignment, your SketchUp tutorial, excuse me. If you go to SketchUp tutorials, you can work on the wheels, tutorial 3, or putting your name on the block, tutorial 4. So you can still get ahead here if you would rather do that. Enrichment, those of you that are totally finished and caught up, you may go to this Google SketchUp folder. You may explore the SketchUp for Schools. Many of you saw that in 6th grade last year, but that's just a backup for those that are totally finished. All right, like I said, I'm symptom free. I hope to be back on Wednesday, and I hope this short video gave you the information and the tools you need to actually start cutting without me. So can't wait to see how it goes. See you all on Wednesday, and yeah, I can't wait. Talk to you soon. How do I shut this thing off?